What is going on, Benzinga Nation? There's so much for us to cover in the world of crypto. I promise you we'll get to it. You've got so many different coins that kind of be moving up and down. There are a few opportunities that I feel like we had yesterday and coming to some updates that we'll provide as well. My name is Zunaid. That is Ross, and this is the Crypto Compass.
Gear up for an electrifying ride through the crypto galaxy, where news travels faster than light and the next big coin is just around the corner. Join us as we uncover the latest market movements, spotlight the coins setting trends, and take the plunge with live trades all shared on screen. The future of finance is here as Crypto Compass, navigating the trenches, starts right now.
All right, man. On last week's episode, I kind of talked about Zach the coin, right? I purchased it around 4 cents. Did I sell it when it got to 10 cents? You bet your ass I did not. Now it's at about 3 cents. That's the story of my life. Kind of, and no one really ever truly knows why a sell-off happens, obviously, unless there's like an event of so to speak. But to me, you've got so many influencers now that have their own coin, thanks to Pumped Out Fund, thanks to some dude named Sahil, apparently. That, people are trying to go with the new shiny toy, and that's you only have so many funds that you can play with. And if you're up X amount, you're going to sell it so you can go ahead and go somewhere else. Those are my thoughts. But give me yours when it comes to these influencers that people are like, oh, hey, it's been hacked. They've been hacked, but it's been a few days and they haven't been hacked apparently. What are your thoughts on the mania?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of influencers getting in, I think for a lot of those, you just got to be careful. I think the thing about crypto is that there's always probability to make money, but you need to look at who's bought in before you and who's going to buy after. So I know this week we notably saw Soulja Boy and Iggy Azalea launch coins. I think Caitlyn Jenner also launched a coin, and all of those were down like 95% from their peaks. And they just dumped, that looks like Jenner's up a little bit today, but for most people who bought in after the fact, they're still way down. If you just look at that chart, right, there's very few places other than right at the get-go that if you bought in, you would be in the green. And I think that what this goes to show you is these influencers, they have all the incentive to shill this. They can get in at the very start of the chart and make a really solid profit regardless. There is sort of that small window of time where if you caught this within the first hour, you could make some gains, but you definitely have to have the wherewithal to say, okay, this is someone who doesn't have the background of being in the space. Like, what does Caitlyn Jenner have to do with crypto? Not really anything. What does Iggy Azalea have to do with crypto? Not really anything. So if they're not really building utility, if there's not a reason for this coin to go higher and it's purely just based off of hype and speculation, this is crypto where people aren't really as subscribed to mainstream celebrities. I'm sure there's some that would have big pull. We've obviously seen the Trump and Biden coins do pretty well. But for these, it makes sense that they're just kind of getting sent to the wood chipper. The same thing happened in 2021 with NFTs. A lot of celebrities would come in, make NFT projects. Early minters of the projects who got in at the lowest price possible, they would make some money, but most of the other people would not. So I think for this type of play, if you see a celebrity launches something, if you're there within the first hour, you could probably take a feeler on it and, buy a little bit, but it's not something that I would be dollar cost averaging into because most of these things are here today, gone tomorrow. So going back to your example with Zach, he runs Atlas Trading. It has a really big community. And, we talked about what do I really think the odds are of that becoming $1 billion or a multi-billion dollar coin? Not super likely. I think, I last week said I would say the peak is probably around 300 million. I think it stalled out a little over 100 million. But again, you just always have to look at things in terms of risk reward. So once Zach is already at 100 million, at best it 3Xs from there, but worst case scenario, it can fall 75%. So I think that's just kind of the thing with shitcoins is you have to really evaluate who's actually buying this and how much of it is manufactured hype. Usually when it's an influencer clearly behind it, it just screams manufactured hype versus something like Whiff or Pepe. It's more of an idea. It's more of a meme. So it's a little bit more organic because it's just people saying, hey, like, I like this photo of a dog, right? I don't know how many people are actually saying, hey, I like Zach Morris. I like the concept of him. I'm not sure if that, equates as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, so here's a question that I have, and Scott's asked as well. You have Katy Perry that apparently tweeted something about like, let's go or something like that, right? So I think there's a coin out there now. This one, Katy, which this spike I believe was when she kind of tweeted that out, and you saw the spike, you saw it come down and kind of here and there. The question then comes, how can you identify when these celebrities, when these influencers have their coin, right? You can't possibly have Noti Gang on all of them. That's thousands of individuals, and you have to hope to be right. Whether it's through scanners, screeners, whatever it may be, what are your tips and tricks on how you can identify coins from influencers so you can get in that first 60 minutes?
I would say for that part of it is just being on socials a lot during the day. So if Katy Perry did drop it, and I don't think she actually did drop a coin for the record. I mean, her tweet really coincided with that Trump news that came out yesterday.
Exactly.
That
Yep.
wouldn't surprise me if that was her reaction to that. I think, I saw all the top comments on that were from crypto people there. Look at that. The top comment is, I speak for everyone when I say we are ready for the next celeb rug.
Right.
Weird that we're seeing crypto people outperforming normies in terms of engagement on crypto Twitter. But
Yeah.
I would say if you're seeing a celebrity post, I would wait for an actual ticker symbol to be provided. So there's no dollar sign in front of the LFG. There's no website. There's no information. But even if there were, you have to, assume the risk that there could be a scammer or a hacker who breached their account. I think people speculated that that's still possibly what happened with Jenner. I'm still not sure to this point if it actually was or wasn't Caitlyn Jenner who put out that tweet. But I think it's really just being glued to social groups and Twitter. So something like that, if she actually did legitimately drop a coin, it would probably be trending on Twitter within 30 minutes to an hour. I think for that, you just have to follow people on Twitter who talk about shit coins and meme coins. I follow a lot of people and interact with a lot of posts. So my algorithm showed me that Katy Perry tweet and all those comments pretty instantly. It's not really something that I seek out. It's not like I'm following Katy Perry or turning notifications on, but all of those comments, all those interactions do go into the feed.
Well, speaking of Trump, right? Again, don't really care what people's politics are. Everyone has their freedom to decide what they want. But you had the first thing that I did not the first thing, but the seventh thing that I did when I heard about Trump's indictment was I looked at Bowden, because that's the ticker that I knew, right? And I think it was one of the news come out. I've got to go back and take a look at let me see here. I'm sure that first spike, this is probably it right here. You see the volume come in. And so these opportunities were out there. So the way that I kind of interpreted this is you had the indictment, which said, hey, Biden, yoo-hoo, right, to the upside. Then people realized, hey, Trump's website crashed. Supporters on FinTwit were now coming to his side. And that's where you saw this kind of tank. And of course, on the opposite side, you've got Trump. I mean, there's so many coins. I genuinely don't know which one to kind of believe or trust or follow or whatever. But they kind of, after they took a little bit of a dip here, you had the exact opposite that happened, that went ahead and pumped. And this was kind of like the first, I don't want to say real life example, but it was like the first, like, man, you really can make money if you are following these events that are happening in the world.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pulled up this chart because this is the one on Ethereum, and this is the one that's been the strongest throughout this entire crypto cycle. I mean, you could have gotten in multiple points, 100 million, 200 million, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up to $1 billion. I know Trump personally, started an Ethereum account when he talked about being more pro crypto, and I believe he actually holds some of this MAGA token, this Trump token that, same symbol you could see there. It's Trump/WETH, but the name of it is MAGA. So, for this, it's just a really interesting balance. I think there's safer plays out there. Do I think you could continue and take this higher? For sure. I think like we've talked about with previous coins, I would be looking for the swing trade, right? We've seen that pattern kind of played out. I've talked about Wizard a bunch on here. It's not on deck screener. It's a separate category. But the reason I bring it up is because I'm accumulating Wizard when it's on those dips, right? When it goes below $4, $3, I really accumulate, and then I'll have a day where it pops off. So can you really ever time Trump being indicted? No. Can you really ever time him having a fundraiser? No. But you can say, okay, we know that there's going to be a community around Trump. There's a lot of people who support him, whether you agree with that or not. There's just people who do. So I wouldn't be chasing it when it gets to the top. I think that's the thing in crypto, that it takes a shift of mentality and methodology, right? If you're chasing something that's already moved 50% a day, there's a good chance it's just going to fall down on you, and then you're going to need a 2x to recover. You don't want to be in that position. So I would just continue to find something where you really have that conviction and dollar cost average into it. There's times when you're wrong, but it just all goes back to don't bet more than you can afford to lose. So, for these things, we're pulling them up. For anyone listening, if you're like, oh man, I really want to get into this coin, I think Trump's going to win the election, this coin's going to go through the roof if he wins, totally a possible outcome. But, it just went up, let's say 50 to 100% in the past couple of days. Wait for it to cool off a little bit. There's lots of different proxies here as well. I will say with these, this ties back to our very first episode when I talked about derivatives. If we know that there's a Trump coin with a 700 million market cap, something with a fraction of that, like right here with 10 million, never surrender, it's likely not going to perform as strongly. If the Trump coin continues to just pump up, so if that Trump coin at 700 million goes to $1 billion, never surrender will definitely follow. And maybe it goes to 15 million, which will be, a 50% gain versus a 30% gain for this going to $1 billion. So there would be a better return. However, if this falls back to 500 million, that never surrender is probably going to go down about 80%. So you just have to be aware that the smaller cap stuff, it's a lot more volatile in both directions. And it's all correlated to the performance of the main coin that's out there. So track the main coin, follow that closely, but just be aware of anything you're betting. Like if it has a higher upside, it definitely has a higher downside.
I just thought about something. You've got the Mavericks playing the Celtics. And if either one of those teams wins the championship, I would assume their coin's going to pop off as well. That's just a theory. I don't have a trade idea around it, but clearly here you have, very little liquidity. So clearly someone thought about it. I don't know if there's other better tickers out there that folks can kind of follow. But anyway, those are the things that I kind of wanted to talk about. What you got on your plate, man? What do you got? What are some other trade ideas that you have on your mind?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to elaborate on your idea that you had there. It's definitely a good play. What I've noticed with a lot of those types of plays is that if it's something that's very topical, usually the mania around it goes away after the actual event. So a great example was when Ronaldo and Messi were against each other in the World Cup. What was that, a couple of years ago? So when they were going against each other, there was a Messi collection and a Ronaldo collection. And when it looked like Messi was going to win, his collection was pumping. And when it looked like Ronaldo was going to win, his collection was pumping. Messi won. And the Messi collections just tanked after that. So a lot of these are just speculation, similar to the stock market, right? It's all about the speculation of, what's NVIDIA's earnings going to be? What's their future cash flows? But at a certain point, it's already priced in. So for something like the NBA playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Mavs coming in. If it's 3-3 and we're in the final series, I wouldn't be surprised if there's two tokens and neck, you're like, oh my God, everyone's betting. But don't be surprised when once the dust settles and let's say the Celtics win the chip. If that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if that Celtics coin still tanks after the fact. And of course,
should I go to pump.fun and create a Mavs token? I mean, I don't know. And a Celtics one as well. Like, I feel like that's what the cool thing to do now is you find these trends and, the game tips off. I think it's June 8th or something like that. Is the first game of the NBA finals. I don't know. Just a trade idea. Maybe some of the viewers that are watching, maybe that's something you can do, have fun with. But if you are going to do that, please DM me so I can get in on it on the ground floor. But all right, what you got for me though?
Yeah, so a lot of volume is coming back to runes. I know we've talked about it before, but let me share my screen real quick. We'll pop on over to Magic Eden here, and we can look at some runes. I got a couple plays for you, so I'm excited to share those. But we're back on Magic Eden. They've added runes to their marketplace, so it's really easy to take a look at. So here is the big catalyst that got runes popping off, and you'll see things are down a little bit, but they are up huge on the week. So Doggo to the Moon, this is like the premier rune. And I know what you're going to say, there's another rune here that looks to be at a 2.2 billion market cap. Just ignore this one. This is like a lot of fraudulent activity going on here. I don't have to get into the logistics of it, but essentially the people who made this rune own like 90% of the supply. So it's the 10% that's being traded that's giving it this crazy market cap. I wouldn't actually account it for this 2 billion valuation. So focusing on Doggo to the Moon here, this is almost at $1 billion market cap. It is like the most popular rune right now. You can see it had $5 million in volume for one day. So runes are coming back, a lot of inflow and volume. I would expect other runes to follow. The catalyst for this is this got listed on a centralized exchange. with more centralized exchanges to come. So it's basically further legitimizing runes as an asset that people can buy. So there's going to be a lot more people looking into runes and volumes coming in. So I'm looking at what runes do I want to get involved with. I think there's a few different plays here that you can have for short-term and long-term. Long-term, I love Satoshi Nakamoto. It is rune 6. So out of all of the runes created, it is the 6th one to exist. It is the founder's name of Bitcoin. It's hard to fade that on a long time scale. I will say with runes, it's going to be a longer play than some of the other stuff we look at in Solana, where it's just pumping a day and then back down to earth tomorrow. But for Satoshi Nakamoto, you can't fade the name. You can't fade that it's rune 6. At a sub $50 million market cap, I could easily see this one reaching 500 mil to $1 billion in the future. Again, it all is just about that acceptance of runes. We're getting on centralized exchanges, but this has such good household recognition for people who are into Bitcoin. So I love this one. I've been stocking up and adding here now that the volume's coming back. Here's an interesting play, and this one's a little bit more speculative, but I think it's kind of juicy. It's Zbit Blue Bitcoin. So I was doing a little bit of research in preparation for today's show. I was like, what is this coin? Why is it up 40%? Only at a $12.7 million market cap. Essentially, there's developers out there who have already built an MMO game. Don't know a whole lot about gaming, but I know that the game is already playable, which is very different from a lot of tokens. A ton of projects say, hey, we got a game coming. Never comes, project is not successful. This already has a game. It very well might be the first fully on-chain game on Bitcoin, and they're integrating their runes into the game. And by integrating, I mean it's integrated. So you can already use this runestone as part of the game. I think that gives it a very interesting cross-pollinations of narratives. You got runes, you have games on Bitcoin. So there's a few different buckets that it hits. And I really like this blue Bitcoin aspect to it, right? I think they could easily get a community following around that of, hey, this is blue Bitcoin, and kind of have that pick off at some point. So at a $12 million market cap, I really haven't seen a ton of people talking about it, but it is definitely getting some volume. Nothing crazy, only like 25,000 there. But I really like the narrative. It is an earlier rune, so I think it has pretty solid potential there. With $12 million market cap, I definitely think 50 million could be in the cards. So that's one that I've loaded up on. I think it's a decent play, but it's all contingent on runes continuing their strength. But that's what we're here talking about today because they're showing good signs.
Speaking of the Mavs, the tickets go live at 1 o'clock Eastern. I've got my settings ready to go. So I'm going to snooze this. But any final thoughts from you before we go so that I can purchase some Mavs, hopefully, tickets if I get a crack at it?
No, best of luck on the tickets, man. Definitely look for stuff that's down in the Solana world today. Everything in crypto rotates. As people are going into runes, you might see some Solana stuff fall down. I would definitely be looking to dollar cost average in as always, and then rotate out, sell on the pops. But yeah, man, best of luck getting those tickets. Should be a showstopper.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get the Game 4 tickets so that if somehow, some way, Mavs end up going up 3-0, who wouldn't want to pay an extra penny or two to see them win the finals at home? That's the thought process. We'll see what ends up happening with life. Appreciate you, man. Best of luck with everything else, and we'll catch up with you next week.